Ohayou gozaimasu, konnichiwa, konbanwa, for whenever you're listening to the Joshi Pod, your weekly podcast about the world of Japanese women's wrestling. Joshi Wrestling, I'm your host, Eric Howard, coming to you from beautiful San Diego, California. And I want to thank you guys all for the positive feedback from last week's interview with Aki and Mei Saruga, the best bros. Love those two. Love Aki. He's been a very good person to the podcast. He's helped me coordinate interviews and interpret for me interviews as well. And what can you say about Mei? She's adorable, cute on purpose, all the good stuff. And again, thank you for all the positive feedback from that last week. If you haven't listened to it, please go back and listen to it. Also, we had some bonus episodes this week, little mini episodes. One with Farah Hasnain, talking about our first trips to live wrestling shows in Tokyo and in Yokohama. Thank her for coming on and doing that. And Grizzly FOG, who's a producer and wrestling fan, and he's merged the two into some pretty awesome songs. If you haven't listened to that episode, please go back in the archives and listen to those two. I'm going to have some more content creators on the podcast before we wrap it up on the 31st. Speaking of the 31st, the amazing feedback I got after announcing that Aki Yasukawa is going to be the final guest on the podcast on the 31st. You guys blew me away about how you reacted, and I can't wait to share it with you. She was everything I wanted her to be, class and grace, and open to just about any question I had for her. I'm not a jerk, so I didn't ask her, terrible, mean questions. I would not do that. I was respectful of her, and I asked questions respectfully. But yeah, she answered pretty much everything I asked. So it's almost probably an hour and a half or so interview with her, and I can't wait to share it with you. Act was one of those people that was kind of unattainable. I thought it was not possible to get on the podcast. She was somebody I wanted to talk to, but she was one of those people I just like, it ain't gonna happen. It's a dream, getting Bull Nakano was one thing because I love Bull. You guys know how much I love Bull, but the opportunity to talk to Act just seemed like out of the realm of possibility. So the fact that she agreed to do the podcast with us and kind of explain everything, talking about her childhood and her career and stuff, and the incident that happened that cost her career. I can't thank her enough for that. I can't wait for you guys to listen to that. But again, that's on the 31st. No interview this week, guys. I couldn't line anybody up. I tried. We just couldn't work out a schedule for some people. But hopefully we'll get a couple in next week. Definitely one next week. I got an interview scheduled this coming Sunday with somebody I've really wanted to talk to since I started the podcast. So I'm super excited. I'm trying to end on a high note, over deliver. And so we got a couple weeks left here. So I'm going to try to mix in as much as I can with as many interviews as I can and content creators as I can. I want to, let you guys know that because the Joshi Pod is gone doesn't mean there's not Joshi podcast out there, not Joshi content creators out there that you can't follow and listen to and watch. And I want to pass it along to them for you guys to, because I'm gonna listen to them. I'm gonna watch them. Just because I'm not doing the podcast doesn't mean I'm not a Joshi fan. Still, I'm staring at my Joshi autograph wall in front of me right now, and So I mean, I'm a Joshi fan when I started. I'm a Joshi fan doing this. I'm a Joshi fan after this. I'm probably gonna be more of a Joshi fan after this because I actually have time to watch Joshi matches again. That's one of the things that doing the podcast kind of took away from me, was not being able to watch as much Joshi as I'd like. I was spending more time trying to find and track down interviews instead of just being a fan. And that's something I'm looking forward to again, as being a fan again. But we still got a few weeks left where I'm a Joshi podcaster. So let's enjoy these last few weeks together. And again, guys, the positive comments, the positive feedback you guys are giving me makes me feel real good inside. It just it warms my heart, and I can't thank you guys enough for all the positivity you send my way and asking me not to stop the podcast and all that kind of good stuff. And it makes me feel good. I just need a break. And who knows what's going to happen? You never know what's going to happen. I could be back in a month from now. I could be back 6 months from now. I don't know. All I'm going to say is don't unsubscribe to the podcast. You never know what's going to pop up. You never know what's going to inspire me to start something different or start something new, or, I get a bit of inspiration from here or there, and, something else pops up. We'll see. But on that note, guys, speaking of inspiration, I'm going to tell the story about how the podcast was created. It was September of last year, and it's basically a story about my vacation that I took when I was at a pretty rough point in my life, and how it changed everything. I've told the story about Emmy, and that was the first seed planted, was talking to Emmy Sakura at a Gato Move show. And then it kind of just built from there, and snowballed, and it was just an amazing trip, an inspirational trip, a life-changing trip, because I wouldn't have done this without that trip. And this podcast and you all have changed my life in a very positive way. There's a lot of toxicity and negativity on social media, but I've thankfully not had to experience any of that. Not too much of it, very, very little of it. So I can't thank you guys enough. Again, you guys are gonna get sick of me thanking you guys, but you guys have no idea what you've done for me and how you've made this past year very special for me, and kept me going when times were tough in my life and was struggling emotionally, and you guys lifted me. So on that note, guys, staying positive, moving forward, and stick around and listen to the birth of the Joshi Pod, or whatever. It sounds so dramatic, but just how the trip I took last year and how the Joshi Pod was born after that, guys. So, all right, we'll have an interview next week, maybe 2, maybe 3, maybe 4. Who knows? We'll see. But on that note, guys, we'll talk to you guys next week. Arigatou gozaimasu.
イエーイ、アスカラクトだ、てめえら、ポッドキャストインタビュー、私出てるからな、てめえら、絶対見ろよ。いいじゃん。日本まんじゅう
Alright guys, here's how the Joshi Pod was born. When inspiration and motivation intersect, there's, I think, potential for something creative and new. It was difficult getting out of bed in the morning and difficult to get through the day. I'd been having anxiety attacks, and they become more and more common. I'm an oversharer, guys, so get ready for it. A daily Xanax, honestly, was about the only thing that kept my head above water. I was in a pretty dark place mentally. The summer months at my work are very busy and stressful, and knowing that I had a vacation last September was the last little thing I needed to save my sanity when the medication didn't work. I just needed to get away from everything. I made plans to attend a few Joshi shows. This wasn't my first trip to Japan, so I was a bit more savvy as to how to get to venues. The crown jewel of this trip was to go to the Stardom's 5-Star Grand Prix finals. I had front row seats. Andres Miyagi helped me get those seats. We DM'd through Twitter, and she was kind enough to get me a front row seat, and it was like front and center too, so it was a perfect seat. Again, this is my third 5-Star Grand Prix final. I saw Yoko Bito beat Tessa Blanchard in 2016, and I saw Mayu win it in 2018. My new goal was to go to the finals every year moving forward. So again, I made that plans for the September 2019. Didn't happen this year because of COVID, but it is what it is. I made other plans as well. I had set a few goals for the trip. One was to see as many shows as many venues as I could. 2 was to go to all the baseball stadiums in Tokyo and Yokohama. And number 3 was to meet Yoshiko and Asuka. I'd made plans for Stardom, Tokyo Joshi Pro, Wave, and Seedling. I'd seen this thing called Gato Move on YouTube a few times. I heard Pumi's amazing commentary, and I decided to give it a shot. I sent an email and had a ticket lined up. So boarding the plane in San Diego, I was ready to leave all my worries behind and have an adventure I'd never forget. And the first show I went to was actually the Gato Move show. I wore my Bull Nakano tie-dye t-shirt, and Emi Sakura immediately noticed when I walked in. I could not believe how small Ichigaya Chocolate Square was and how many people they crammed in that little tiny room. And me being a big boy, I'm sure everybody else felt a little more crowded that day. But it was also a bit embarrassing. Emmy tried as much as she could in English to let me know what was going on in the show opening, so I would not feel left out. I told her she didn't have to, but she insisted. During the opening, Emmy also asked me who my favorite wrestler was, and I said Bull Nakano, of course. And Emmy mentioned Bull's submission, but she said her opponents were too big, which were Antonio Honda and Sean Shiru. And it was... the show was gold every second. I mean, it's just an amazing, amazing show. And in one of the matches, Saki from Actress Girls, the best Saki in wrestling, JPQ, grabbed Mitsuru Kono and put her in the Bulls on Angelito. And Saki stared at me and smiled. It was just a pretty cool experience, a very unique once-in-a-lifetime experience. And they do this cheer at the end of each of the Gato Move shows, and Emmy had them say my name. And it could not have felt more special in that moment, could not have felt more included. And it was just a pretty amazing moment. When I left that show, I was completely full of like positivity and happiness. And I told Emmy, I've told this story a million times, so I'm going to tell it one last time, guys, before this all ends, that when I go back home, I'm going to tell the world about Gato Move. And she asked me how, and I didn't have a response. And Justin Knipper, who is the producer of the song and the composer of the song that opens the Joshi Pod every week, he was there as well. And he was did a little translating for Emmy and I. But so I've also had him on the podcast, so check it out. He also did a wonderful article on the passing of Hana Kimura. Check those out as well. But after that day, after that morning, I was flying high. I was ready for more adventures. And that evening, I attended a Gambari show at the Basement Monstar at OG. It's near OG Station. Guys, if you're looking for pizza in Tokyo, Pizza Hut in Japan is trash. I love a lot of things about Japan, but Pizza Hut's not one of them. But there's a Rocco's Pizza at OG near OG Station. If you're craving real pizza, stop by Rocco's at OG Station. Tell them the Joshi Pod sent you. I'm kidding. No, don't tell them that. They're like, what? What are you talking about? Anyway, so I went to a Gambari show at the Basement Monstar, and Yumihito Imanari saw me there, and he kind of fist bumped me and smiled when he walked by. I think he did that because I was the only non-Japanese person in the building that night, and he probably appreciated that I went out to an out-of-the-way place to check out a show. Acts of kindness, even the smallest gestures, can go a long, long way. I really appreciated him taking the second to do that. But I did get to see Ayame Sasamura on that show, and Harukaze and Moeka Harui, and it's it kind of cool that now looking back, that it's going to happen even more people I talk about in this podcast. But I got to interview some people I got to see live, so that was pretty cool, and pretty fun night at that show, and they put on a really good show. The next show I got to go to was the Tokyo Joshi Pro show at KFC Hall. It was near Ryogoku Gokugikan. I say that so terribly. My Japanese has not gotten any better in the last year of me doing this podcast. But I got to see Maki Ito live for the first time. I also got to see one of my many Joshi crushes, Yuna Manase, win the International Princess title. My main goal for this show was to see Miyu Yamashita. I think she's amazing. She's one of my favorites. I say that a lot about a lot of people, but she really is one of my favorites. And I wanted to see her live and maybe get an autograph from her. I'd never really done the Checkie thing before. I always just got portraits signed, but I thought, well, heck, why not? So I bought a Checkie for Yuki Kamafuku and Miyu Yamashita. And again, these people, Yuki Kamafuku, another one that I was able to have on the podcast. But so I got the Checkie with Kamiyu, but I missed my chance with Miyu. I don't speak Japanese. I had a hard time understanding the announcements, when the wrestlers were available for the Checkies. So I missed it. Not their fault at all. 100% my fault for not understanding Japanese. So so I thought, I missed my chance for a Checkie, but I still wanted to get an autographed portrait, so I got in line to meet Miyu. Google translated to her that she was the reason I came to the show. She thanked me and signed a portrait. Miyu then saw the little laminated card they give you when you buy a Checkie, and I Google translated to her saying I didn't understand when the announcement was made. Literally, a second after she read that, she took off running from behind the autograph tables and around the room, and she tracked down a photographer and brought him back to the merch table, and she took a picture with me. And she didn't have to do that, but again, it's just, I'm going to call it customer service, but I'm going to call it, going the extra mile as well, and doing, doing special things for fans. And you want to say doing the right thing, but it's not, it's more than the right thing. It's the extra thing. She didn't have to do that. She didn't have to, in America, I'm not sure, if you went to a WWE show or something like that, they would do anything like that. That's not unfair to say, actually. Let me take that back. That's not fair to say. They probably do, but in Japan, I feel less like a mark. I hate that term, but I feel less like a mark than I do when I'm in Japan. But, so I also got to meet Maki Ito that day, and Kamiyu. Maki spoke a little bit of English. Kamiyu speaks English really well, as you guys have heard on the podcast. But Maki asked me where I was from. I said California, and she looked at me puzzled. She did not know where California was, apparently. And I tried Hollywood, and she still wasn't getting it. But anyway, so that was a pretty fun experience meeting Maki that day, too. And my trip, honestly, guys, was made at that point. I was satisfied. I was, flying high. It was an amazing trip. I was like, okay, I'm good. If these are the highlights of my trip, mission accomplished. I'm good to go. But no, there was more. There's more. I'd met a family on Facebook. I don't even know how I became friends with them. It's just one of those, the power of social media kind of thing. And I got to meet them. I took a train down to Yokohama, and I was going to go to a baseball game that night, so that I left down that early to go to meet this family. And they were the most kind people you'll ever meet in your life. They treated me to one of those giant, multi-course Japanese meals. It was just the most wholesome thing. We went to the cup of noodle factory, where the ramen factory in Yokohama. We did all that kind of thing. We was a tourist, got to go to the Chinatown in Yokohama as well, and it was just the best. I mean, I keep saying over and over again about how special things were on this trip, but this was amazing. You're humbled about how kind people are. You're humbled about how welcoming people are and how they treated you so well. I'm a big old bearded, long, I had hair back then, but just American guy who could be a monster, who looks like a monster in a way, but they just treated me with respect. I treated them with respect, absolutely. But it was just an amazing day. It was an amazing time. And it's one of those moments you never forget, and you realize, these will be my friends for the rest of their life. When they come to America, I'm going to spend time with them. I'm going to show them the very best things about America. And I'm sure when I go back to Japan again, to Yokohama, then I'm going to, spend some time with them again as well. But it's just one of those absolutely amazing things, that you just, I'm a very, very thankful, very lucky man. And, that was just a very, very special day for me. And I'll never forget that day in Yokohama with the family there, and had fun at the baseball game that night as well. People like to talk to me. I guess I stand out a little bit, but and I'm very friendly with people. If I'm a smiler, I'll say hi to you, and and I'll buy you a beer if you come sit next to me, and I'll Google. I love having Google translator conversations with people, but it was a lot of fun, and people try their best to speak English with me, and I feel, again, I've told you this before, I feel super guilty that I don't speak any Japanese, but the people were so fun that night in Yokohama. I had a blast meeting the people at the ball game there as well. So my next show was at Kurikan Hall on the 18th of September. It was a seedling show. I got to see Mei Tag Team, Mei Horshizuki, and Mei Saruga team together. I got to see Max Voltage, Miyuki Takase, Nanae, and Ryo, Aniki, and I got to see Asuka, Makoto, Arisa Nakajima beat Takumi Iroha to win the title that night. Another just amazing show, a Joshi show. Seedlings puts on amazing shows, and this was a fun one, and I got to meet Asuka. That was one of my, like I said before, one of my goals was to meet Asuka, and I did get to meet her that night and got a picture with her. I think so highly of Asuka. I think she's so brave. I got to meet her again this past March when I was in Tokyo, but I think she's an amazing talent, an amazing person, and a very brave person, and I look nothing but look up to her and wish her the best in all she does. And Yoshiko is a very polarizing person in the world, not just wrestling, not just Joshi wrestling, but in the world. And I wanted a picture with her. I wanted an autograph from her, and I finally got to do that. And I took a picture hugging her. People kind of gave me crap a little bit when I posted it, calling her an animal, things like that. And it's a little ironic. I have Act on as my last guest on this podcast ever. But, I don't condone what Yoshiko did. I don't forgive Yoshiko for what she did. I won't forget Yoshiko for what she did, but she did what she did. And I think she's done everything she could to show that she's a changed person. Again, you do the crime, you're ostracized, you're punished, either by law or by people. And she's been punished for many years for what she did. But I did want to meet her. I did want to take a picture with her. I like Yoshiko. She was very sweet to me, very kind to me. But again, you have the thoughts in the back. I'm rambling a little bit, guys. Sorry. But, you can't hate forever, I guess. Nobody died. Somebody was very much affected by what happened, but nobody died. So, but anyway, yeah, I got to meet Yoshiko, and again, very polarizing. And I'm not sure if I explained myself well about her, but yeah, so you kind of gotta the forgive and forget thing. I talk about that with Act in the interview, but yeah, it's Yoshiko, and she's turned her life around, and I think she's doing everything she can to make amends for what she did. And again, some people won't forgive her, and I understand that. I don't have a problem with that. And some people can't move past it. Again, can't blame people for not wanting to move past it. But yeah, so I got to meet Yoshiko and Asuka. So checking things off my list right and left. So I was able to go to all the ball games, all the stadiums, and see the different places. And it was I'm a big baseball guy, so it was very exciting for me to go to all these ballparks and try to take the trains and find them and do all this and that kind of stuff. And that was a good time. My next adventure was to go to the DDT, the Dropkick Bar, the DDT bar in Shinjuku. And it's hard to find. Again, my fault for not being able to read Japanese, not anybody else's fault. It's my fault for not reading Japanese. And I was going around in circles and using my iPhone, the maps and stuff. And I keep walking around the block. And I think I found it, but there's an elevator. I don't suspect a bar would be like on the 4th or 5th floor. I'm not a big bar guy in Japan. I'm not a big bar guy in general. But anyway, I see a girl at the elevator, and I asked her, Dropkick? And she understood me and told me yes. And she kind of said to, pointed her finger for me to follow her because she was on that way too. So I got to go to the bar. So the second I walk in the bar, everybody makes me feel welcome. Everybody, the bartenders behind the bar were super awesome, and the one bartender spoke some English, so we were chit-chatting a little bit, and I didn't realize that night that they were celebrating Rika Tatsumi's and Yuki Aino's birthdays. And the woman at the elevator was Rika Tatsumi, who I just saw at the Tokyo Joshi Pro Show. 1, I felt like an idiot. 2, the wrestlers looked very different in civilian clothing. And 3, I'm an idiot. So, Rika and Yuki could not have been more kind. Rika spent quite a bit of time with me, sitting with me in, using the old Google Translate conversations, which I appreciate them doing. And I had Japanese curry for the first time there. Yuki and Rika had made it. I guess it's a tradition when they do the birthday parties that the wrestlers make food for people at the bar. It was just another wonderful night. Made me feel very special, and the other fans that were there were very cool to me too, and real happy that I was there. They weren't, treating me like I was an outsider invading their little special night with the wrestlers. They couldn't have not have been more cool to me. So that was a whole lot of fun. The next show I got to go to was a wave show on the 21st of September at Shinkiba First Ring. That's the first time I think it was the first time I'd been to Shinkiba, so I had to manage the trains and try to find it because it's out there a little bit as well. But glad I got to go to Shinkiba, and Wave puts on great shows as well. I got to see Haruka Umasaki for the first time there, and saw Hikaru Shida again there, and I got to saw the legend Kyoko Inoue. I got to see her wrestle there as well, and Sakura Hirota, who's just amazing. And I got to see Takumi Iroha again, Miyuki Takase again. And it was a really fun show. Very happy I went out there and saw that show. But yeah, so the Wave puts on... I guess it goes without saying, guys, you guys got to go to Japan if you can, if you have the means to do it. I when I was younger, I did not have the means to do it. I'm in my 40s now, so I finally, have the career, the money to afford to do this. So just, guys, because you don't think you have it now, guys, don't think it can't happen. I always thought I would never be able to go to Japan, but stick with it. You're going to get to go. It just takes time. I couldn't fathom going in my 20s. I just didn't have the cash or the sensibility to save money to go to a trip like that. But yeah, so don't get discouraged because you're young and you haven't gone yet. Yeah, I was in my 40s before I went for the first time. So anywho, the next event I got to go to was the crown jewel of the trip. It was the finals of the 5-star at Kurikan, and Hana she's one of my favorites. She really was one of my favorites. I'd fallen in love with her when I first saw her in 2016 at the Stardom show. That's when she joined Oedo Tai, and I got to meet her in 2018, and I'm not an insider, so I don't have any spoilers, and finding out spoilers in Japan are next to impossible. But anyway, I thought she had a really good chance of winning the 5-star last year, and she did. And so I really wanted to be there for that. And so Andres Miyagi, the one who got me the front row seat, and saw me, and she smiled as much as Andres Miyagi smiles when she saw me at in the front row. And I've told this story a million times too, but after the show they do the merchandise, and it was crazy. It's Stardom. Stardom is very, very, very popular merchandise sellers. And Hana was the belle of the ball today, very much so. And looking back, it means a whole lot more that I got to experience this. But I was the last guy in line. I told this story before. I was the last guy in line to see Hana Kimura on the day she won the 5-star, and she could not have been more kind to me, spent more time with me. She was probably doing merch for a couple of hours and by the time I got to her. And she smiled as big as she smiled since probably the first picture she took. And she treated me very kind and thanked me for coming. And I'm looking up at the Checkie right now that I took with her. It's on my Joshi wall. And the sign I had that said I was the last in line, and she signed those. And yeah, it was, in hindsight, I'm glad I appreciated it then, but I appreciate it even more now, knowing unfortunately what happened to Hana. But yeah, I'll take that positive thought in memory of Hana to my grave, knowing that it was one of the coolest things that's happened to me in my life, was to get that 5-10 minute interaction with her at the end of the day, and just knowing that she lived what she said. Everybody's different, everybody's special, and she made me feel very special that day. And on her special day, her biggest day of probably her career to that point. And yeah, I can't say enough wonderful things about what Hana did for me that day. And I wish could have had more interactions with her. She's somebody when I started the podcast, she was somebody I really wanted to get on the podcast, but I knew because she was with Stardom, it was probably next to impossible. But yeah, I love Hana, miss Hana, and I love that you guys love Hana and miss Hana as well. And yeah, love and nothing but love for Hana, and nothing but love for that day. And a fan gave me a Andres Miyagi button because she found out I was a fan of Andres Miyagi. So it was just a wonderful, wonderful day. People were just so kind to me, and I was in line for the Checkie, and I kind of I kind of knew where to go. I kind of didn't know where to go. And, and the fans saw like the little card I was holding, and would kind of like not push me, but, lead me to where, the line was, and kind of lead me to the front of the line almost when I took my picture with Hana. That they didn't care that I wasn't trying to, to jump the line or anything, or cut the line in front of anybody, but they thought it was super cool that I was there, and was excited, and they could see the big smile on my face. And yeah, just a wonderful. Wrestlers are wonderful. The fans are wonderful. People have just been wonderful to me on my trip there. And my final show, I decided to go to another Gato Move show. I reserved another seat after I got to Japan for that trip. And so night before I left, I went to one more Gato Move show. Got to see Lulu Pencil and Yuna Misupan and Che for the first time. I got to see Che wrestle. I love her. I told Emmy that when I was back in March, that I just love Che and her energy and spunk. And it's I'm glad to see she's becoming more of a focus on Choco Pro, because I think she's amazing. Her energy is contagious. But yeah, so it was a nighttime show. And they packed, 60 plus people in this little tiny room again. And I kind of lingered a little bit after the show because I didn't want to go. I knew I had to leave in the morning. And I knew that this adventure was pretty much over. I was almost in tears leaving that night. They all treated me again. Lulu and I chatted for a while. She speaks a little bit of English, and she and I chatted for a while. And got a portrait of her, and I'm looking at it right now. It's on my Joshi wall. And we talked about her brother being in LA, and talked about how she had to come to LA and all that kind of good stuff. But Lulu was wonderful. Lulu was, again, one of these inspirations for this podcast, because I think what she does is brilliant. And I think that what Gato Move is, Choco Pro, whatever you want to call it, is brilliant. And again, I made up my mind I was going to try to find a way to tell people about Gato Move, and I was going to find a way to do it. I wasn't sure how, but yeah. So again, I woke up I woke up not wanting to go to the airport the next morning. I just didn't want it to end. This was a magical experience from start to finish. Everything, every baseball game I went to, I interacted with people. Every wrestling show, I interacted with people. I interacted with the wrestlers, and nothing but, just amazing just an amazing experience. People were just happy to have me there, happy to see me. No pressure to buy anything, no pressure to do anything. Just treated you well. I felt amazing. I felt special. A lot of us, sometimes we live our day-to-day lives and work and do this and that. We don't feel special. And this trip, I felt special every single freaking day. And it changed my life. I always thought I treated people pretty well, especially as I've gotten older, just respecting people in general. But, it's experiences like that where you go to another country and every single person you run into treats you well and treats you with respect and wants you to have the best day you could have ever. If it's, Mesaruga, or, if it's Andres Miyagi or Hana Kimura or the family I met in Yokohama, or the fans that, I sat with at the Tokyo Dome for a baseball game. That's why I hold Japan in such high regard. They're not perfect. No country is perfect. But this trip is one of the biggest reasons I hold that country in such high regard, is because everybody was kind to me. Everybody was just welcoming to me. Nobody gave me a dirty look. Nobody, they might have been making fun of me in Japanese. I don't know, but whatever. Ignorance is bliss, right? But yeah, so it was just an amazing trip, an amazing experience. So I come home and I start brainstorming about what I'm going to do, how I'm going to tell the world about Gato Move. And my buddy and I talked about doing a podcast earlier last year about like reviewing sports movies. It was going to be called the Screen Pass. Get it? Screen Pass, movie Screen Pass in football. Anywho, terrible name for a podcast. But anyway, so I'd kind of been researching a little bit about podcasting, but it really, honestly, it was not in my mind about doing a wrestling podcast, because there's a gazillion wrestling podcasts out there. And I thought, I'm not going to do one of those. I don't have the gift of gab. I don't think that a lot of people have, and probably you guys listening to this, if you're still listening at this point, understand I don't have the gift of gab. That's why I have guests on my podcast, so I don't have to talk so much. So I kind of started researching about it, and I was like thinking, I can't do a podcast because I can't talk for an hour. I can't talk for half an hour without boring the pants off of people, I think. But I decide, I can try to get guests. I can try to interview people, that the foreigners that have gone to Japan and have wrestled in Japan. So I kind of decided, let me see what can happen, So the first person I reach out to is Jim Valley. I don't know who to ask to be a guest. Honestly, I wasn't sure. I was, doing research. I didn't know. I had zero contacts starting this podcast. I have no contacts at all. I didn't know anybody in the industry. I didn't know anybody anywhere. So I reached out to Jim saying, "Hey Jim, starting a podcast called the Joshi Pod. Would you like to be a guest and talk about your experiences with Stardom?" And he instantly said yes. Jim's fighting a fight right now, and I've tweeted his GoFundMe page a couple of times where they're trying to raise money. He's going through a very difficult fight right now for his life, and I owe Jim a whole lot for this podcast, and I wish him the best. And maybe when he is healthy enough, I'm going to do another podcast with him if he's willing to do it with me. I'll come back out of retirement for Jim Valley to do a podcast with him. But yeah, so Jim said yes, and I'm like, oh boy, here we go. And we did a podcast, and I recorded a podcast, and I don't think it was great. I don't think many of my early episodes were great, but I don't know if any of my episodes at all are great. But yeah, so I got Jim, and then I was like, okay, we're off and running, guys. And I made the commitment to myself. I was going to do one every single week, and I had to go start hunting for guests. and it was a little difficult finding guests. Pumi, the voice of Gato Move, I thought he'd be a good person to talk to, and he was kind enough to spend some time with me. And I'm not going to go through every single interview here, but I was stuck on the third week. I had nobody for the third week, and I was struggling. And B-Boy, who's a wrestler here in Southern California, who's wrestled all over the place, I reached out to him and said, "Hey, buddy, I needed help." He's like, "Hold on." And he got me Kikyo. And Kikyo and I spoke about her trip to Japan and her injury and things like that. And so he got me past that. He got me a guest, and we were kind of off and running at that point. And I did some people like Tekla. I was pretty happy I got. She went back this year and kind of tore up with Ice Ribbon, but I talked to her last December. Nicole Savoy I talked to at the Char Expo in LA. And there was another one at the start of the year where I had nobody. Like, it was a Thursday. I record Thursday night, and I release for Friday morning or Thursday night, whatever, late Thursday night. And I had nobody. And I was looking at the world clock on my iPhone, saying, okay, what time zones and where people are still awake? And I reached out to Avery, who I saw wrestle at Stardom at one of the finals of the 5-star, and she was kind enough to do the interview for me very last second. And again, I'm a novice at this. This is my 10th episode. I'm not very good at it. I don't know the technology. I was kind of guessing a little bit, and it was a struggle technologically. Had technological struggles because I couldn't get it to record her side of the conversation. So I had to hold my iPhone up to the microphone, and I recorded her through my microphone, through my iPhone, and it came off okay, actually. I was pretty happy with it. So, so it was pretty cool. And then, we're kind of just, I'm getting people, I got Jazzy and Rio O'Reilly, and Chris Wolf was my first big download episode. The first chat with Chris Wolf was pretty cool. Debbie Malenko was really cool. And then Akane Fujita, I got to meet here. She came to San Diego for a show, and I got to we actually sat in the back of an SUV, and I interviewed Akane Fujita in the backseat of an SUV, which was pretty cool. And then I got to go to Japan in March again, and Fumi Saito, who I had earlier on the podcast on episode 13, he hooked it up. He got me a chance to interview Bull Nakano in Japan, and I got to meet Bull in a karaoke establishment in Tokyo, in Shinjuku, and got to meet Bull face to face. She was my dream guest. She really was. She was like, okay, this is the person I want to get, and this is like the top of the mountain for me. And I got her in episode 22, which is blows my mind that I got her so early on. But so I got to meet Bull and do that. That's, again, another day I'll never forget for the rest of my life. Then other crazy episodes like Maki Ito was like it still is my biggest download episode ever. Her doing it in English was amazing. And this is not hyperbole, but when Hana passed away, I thought about quitting the podcast then. That was back in May of this year. I thought about just, turning it in and not doing it anymore because I was heartbroken. My country, not my country, the country that I love so much from last September, turned on what I thought they were, which they are what I think they are, but there's a few people who aren't what I think they are. It's not making any sense, but the bloom was off the rose for me for a bit with Japan because of how Hana was treated and what it led to. And I really contemplated just just stopping it then and moving on and doing something else because I just didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want to talk about Joshi wrestling. I didn't want to watch Joshi wrestling. I didn't want to do anything because, my heart was broken. It was, as we all still, miss her and hate what happened. It broke me for a bit, but, decided to go on, and I'm glad in hindsight I did. I've got to meet people like Masha Slamovich, who I still message weekly. A lot of people I've been able to talk to, I still keep in touch with. But we were rolling along. Alexis Lee I got to meet through this, and I think she's just a wonderful person, and I really appreciate correspondences with her on Twitter. I tease her. I like to tease her, but I think the world of her. And then I got to do some different cool things with like Ron Funches on the podcast and stuff, and got to meet Farah Hasnain, and it just kept rolling along, and got to do some really cool stuff. Got to interview Yappy, who was somebody I really wanted to talk to, and Session Moth Martina was a big one for me as well, because I love Martina. I think what she does is brilliant, and I got to chat with her. So we're coming up almost on a year, and I've probably rambled long enough, guys, but again, it's been a wonderful journey. These last 2 months have been really difficult getting guests as shows start ramping up again, and people get busy, and it's hard to get a hold of people, and it's just hard to coordinate translators and wrestlers on the other side of the world where I'm in California, and it's just difficult to do, and it became not fun a little bit it's a little bit at the end. I put probably more pressure on myself than none of you guys ever put pressure on me, but I put pressure on myself. I'm a little bit of a perfectionist, and I really wanted to put out the best product I can. I kept trying to one up myself, and try to get the best guests I could get. And it took a toll on me. It's taken a toll on me, and I need a break. But that's not what this part of the podcast is about. This part is about how I was born. And so now I'm trying to, as this thing comes to an end, try to get the people I want to get before the show's over, including ACT, which will be on the 31st of October. But having people like Grizzly FOG, having Farrah on here, having JPQ on here, and Justin Knipper, and Kay from the Big Egg podcast, and JD from the Red Leaf Retrocast, and I'm going to have Eric Peralta on, and Dylan on, and all these people on, so you get to know them. I'm going to try to leave a legacy of the interviews, but also leave a legacy of you guys getting to know the other people that are putting content out there that I think deserve some recognition. I always joke about, I want my friends to be your friends, and I absolutely do. And I'm going to try my best to do that here at the end. But again, there's too many people to thank for everything they've done for me for this podcast. Fumi, Pumi, Emmy Sakura, Aki, Yappy, Farah, JPQ, just a bunch of people that have just been so B-Boy, just a bunch of people that have been so terrific to me through this journey. And it's been a ton of fun. It's a lot of work, but again, the best part about this is that I got to meet a lot of you and interact with a lot of you, and I'm going to interact with a lot of you for a long time to come. If you guys want to interact with me, so guys, that's how the Joshi Pod was born. Just a amazing experience where I got to meet so many wonderful people and experience so many wonderful things in a country that I love, in a country that I want to visit again. COVID, please go away. But yeah, guys, again, thank you so much. Can't thank you enough for if you're still listening to this. I can't thank you enough because yeah, this show proves why I have guests on, why I don't just sit and talk every week. This is not my forte. This is out of my comfort zone. But again, Tropical Yahoo, thank you. Yuna, thank you. Mitsu, thank you. Lulu, thank you. Miyako, thank you. Delmi, thank you everybody. Thank you everybody for who helped inspire and participate and be part of this journey with me. I'll never forget it until I'm dead and buried. I'll never forget this experience. So it's been wonderful. All right, guys, we'll talk to you all next week.